Hey guys, it's Claus. Welcome back to another episode on today, a special day among days, a special day in my life, and a day in which I will share words of wisdom with you. Special words which have to be said and spoken. And I encourage you to share these words and thoughts with your loved one. If you're married or have a wife or girlfriend, you should invite her to listen with you and share this video together. Just pause it here and go get her. She's, you're always at the computer. Why don't you do things together? But seriously, guys, life has a way of the ups and downs, the cycles, the cards you're dealt. It's mysterious and fascinating at the same time. And just think of it. Sometimes you are blessed with moments of joy and happiness, and other times have to face periods of misery and depression. Ecstasy and bliss could easily be followed by disappointment and frustration. Some days you wake up with nothing but hope and expectation, and others you lie in bed filled with despair and melancholy. You may have to trudge your way through long valleys of melancholy and sublime, only to climb short peaks of bursts of excitement and euphoria. It is funny how things work out and the cards you are dealt. Let's look at an example. Let's look at me a year ago or a couple of years ago. What would have been the most depressing time of the day for me? Well, it would have been that moment after waking up in the morning to that buzzer alarm reminding me that it was time to get up and go to work. Just as I wiped the sleep from my eye and trudged my way over to the toilet to have my morning piss, I would waver there, pathetically, flaccidly dribbling into the bowl like a leaky faucet, thinking, oh God, not another day at work. And here we are, just a few years later. What is the most enjoyable, happiest part of my day now? It's that first few seconds in the morning when my eyes open to the sounds of songbirds out my window, and I immediately wake up alert, ready to take on the day. Battling a morning erection, I arc my piss into the bowl from across the room like a fireman battling a 4-alarm fire. High pressure impact causing the contents of the bowl to froth over like a shaken can of Coca-Cola. Good morning! I'm ready! How did your day start this morning? Did it start with despair or joy? And it's a choice we make. And I owe it all to you guys, because I didn't make a choice. It was all serendipity. It was just basically fluke, luck. 90% of success in life is just showing up. And what did I do? First I got fired, which was lucky. And then I started posting YouTube videos, and luckily again, you guys started watching them. And here I am, every morning, awake and alert and ready to go. Now that part about arcing the piss from across the room like a fireman and the bowl frothing over, well, that was artistic license. Really, that has more to do with, the cross-sectional area of certain vessels within your body, and let's face it, the size of your prostate and things like that. And speaking of prostates, I had mine checked the other day. I had my checkup and passed with flying colors. And have you guys went for checkups lately? I mean, I'm going to give you some advice here. Words of wisdom. This was about words of wisdom. If you're a man and you go to have a checkup and you have a doctor who it's usually at the end of the examination and all the tests that he gets the rubber glove out and puts it on his hand and looks over at you and asks you to lie on your side and try and relax. First of all, if he's smiling at all while he says that, get another doctor. And secondly, before you allow him to probe his finger into your anus to, quote unquote, examine your prostate, ask him this. Ask him, this is what I asked him. I said, what do you hope to accomplish with what you're doing now? You're going to insert your finger up my ass and check my prostate. And what could you possibly check with your finger encased in that rubber glove up my rectum, feeling my prostate? What are you going to be able to detect? He didn't answer me. He just said, well, Mr. Kellerman, I just want you to relax and try and exhale right now. What seemed to me like at least half an hour of probing and feeling uncomfortable, which he assured me was only about 30 seconds. His finger emerged, the glove was quickly removed and discarded into the waste. And I asked him, well, what's the verdict? And he said, well, it felt okay. What do you mean it felt okay? Well, I'm not sure. I didn't feel anything strange. It felt all right. I'll have to book you in 6 months from now where I can examine you again and see if there are any changes. In the meantime, you can do the regular blood test that we have that you get for your checkup. One of them is the PSA test, which will be more definitive and let us know if there's anything to worry about. PSA test? There's a test? There's a blood test you could do? PSA test? What does PSA stand for? Please don't stick your finger up my ass anymore? Well, you have a test that you can do, yet you jammed it in there? What for? 6 months from now, you want to jam it in there again and feel around, and you're going to remember what it felt like 6 months ago, and is there any difference? What? It just doesn't make any sense. It would be like, and I explained it to him while I was still lying on my side. I said, if this was a plastic surgeon office, a high-paid top plastic surgeon that specialized in breast implants, and a customer came in and said, I'm thinking of getting a breast enlargement. I'm not sure. I think my breasts are too small. I just want a consultation. Would the plastic surgeon say, well, okay, let me do a test, latch on and grab onto the breast, fondle them and feel them and say, well, they feel okay. Why don't you come back 6 months from now? I'd like to examine them again, and I'll let you know whether I think you should have an enlargement. Does that make any sense? He calmly explained to me that plastic surgery and breast implants are an optional cosmetic thing, and this was a physical, quote-unquote physical, which is a health issue, and he's required to conduct certain tests and what have you. And my brain worked quickly. I says, oh, so it's like you're saying you're more like a dentist. Like when you go into the dentist office, you have, you can get the scaling, you can get the fluoride, you can get the polishing, the x-rays, and the exam. And they're each charged separately. There's right? So you can go in there and say, well, I don't want to get the polishing and the x-ray this time. It'll cost you a little bit less. I just want the scaling and the polishing, or I just want the fluoride, or right? You can mix and match. Customer is always right. You can choose. And so I asked him, okay, you're conducting a physical here. How does a doctor get paid? So you're saying you have a checklist of things that you must do in the physical, and you obviously, do you get paid for each different thing? So one of the things on the list is stick your finger up the guy's ass and feel around for 30 seconds. What's the charge for that? Like, can I have the physical? Let's say, like, you could look at my mouth. You could check my reflexes by hitting my knee with that thing, and use that stethoscope on my chest and listen for a while. You can do those things, but I leave out the sticking the finger up the ass part. Like, how much would it cost less? And he assured me that doctors do indeed have to follow a certain checklist prescribed by the governing body of physicians on what a proper physical is. And even though they can do a blood test now to measure your PSA and tell you if there's anything wrong by monitoring that over time, sticking the finger up the ass is still on the list. But if you ask before the exam, you don't have to have that part. So next time, I just have to let him know, and he won't do it. He didn't tell me that before, though, right? So the words of wisdom, the whole point here of the whole video is, your life There are ups and downs, joy, happiness. You can wake up with euphoria and hope. And by 3 o'clock when you're at the doctor's office, be filled with disappointment and frustration. You don't know how it's going to go, but you can have some control. You don't have to leave it all up to serendipity. It's your life and it's your body, and you can choose. And you can say, the takeaway here is you do not have to let anyone stick anything up your ass.